Govinda?
Yes, my health is good. Um, yeah, but just like everyone else, having own problems and things that I'm dealing with too. Nothing so critical though, like that. But just, I guess, just um, learning that I got the visual right now. A big part of it is like financials, like just money and like bills and all this stuff coming in. And I
Okay.
just got the image of like that picture of the devotee who's in the ocean and he's like reaching up for Krishna or Lord Vishnu on Garuda. And so just feeling that, yeah, that
Oh,
we're in the ocean, that we're in the ocean and the waves are coming and there's no way we can try to make our way out of it. We just have to ask and beg Krishna and Guru and the devotees to take us out of this mess.
yes.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look towards Krishna in every step. And you're in Alachua for real. And one of the things that attracted devotees to there originally was that land was cheap, but now that everybody
Oh,
kind of moved there, but it's gotten very expensive because Alachua is like out in the middle of nowhere. Like
yeah,
it
it
sh-
should
it
be.
it should be cheap, but because so many Hare Krishnas have moved there, I think it's caused the land, like the price of the land, to go up because it's in demand. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I
Yeah, I
feel you.
saw there was a property
So,
for sale that I was like wanting to get, and then just it got snatched up. So, yeah, we can,
we are live streaming, so maybe we should get down to the Srimad Bhagavatam
yeah,
and
we
talk
can
about
start.
it.
All
Okay.
right.
Mm.
Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devam saraswatam vyasam tato jayamudira nastu parishu badrishu nityam bhagavati sevaya bhagavati uttamashloke bhakti bhavneshki Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya Om namo bhagavate vasudevaya. All right. Um So today it's chapter 4, right? Canto 2, chapter 4. Hold on one second. Let me get there. For some reason my Bhagavatam is in Canto 4. Okay. Canto 2, chapter 4. What were the text? Oh,
3 and 4.
3 and 4. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you. Sorry. Um when you do like multiple Bhagavatam classes, my I have an app, but it's all over the place. So, all right, starting today on text 3. This canto is titled "The Process of Creation." All right. Okay, long verse today. Prapachicemam eva prapachit prapachicemam evartam yanmam prachatastatama Krishna nubhava shravane shadan tadanyo mahamana samstam vidyanya sanyasya parmatrad chayat Vasudeve Bhagavati Atma Bhavam Tridam Gata. Translation. O, o sages, the great soul Maharaj Parikshit, constantly wrapped in thought of Lord Krishna, knowing well of his imminent death, renounced all sorts of fruitive activities, namely acts of religion, economic development, and sense gratification, and thus fixed himself firmly in his natural love for Krishna, and asked all these questions exactly as you are asking me. So now we're going back to, because the Bhagavatam is conversation within a conversation within a conversation. So for those that might be a little bit lost and wondering where we're at, we're going back to Shonaka Rishi speaking to the sages of Naimisharanya. That's why it says, "Oh, great sages." So he's talking about the questions that Maharaj Parikshit was asking to Shukadeva Goswami, and also this verse is talking about what Maharaj Parikshit did after sitting down on the bank of the Ganges, after he got the notice that he was going to die in 7 days. So purport. The three activities of religion, economic development, and sense gratification, are generally attractive for conditioned souls struggling for existence in the material world. Such regulated activities prescribed in the Vedas are called the karmakandya conception of life. The householders are generally recommended to follow the rules to enjoy material prosperity, both in this life and in the next. Most people are attracted by such activities. Even in the activities of their modern godless civilization, people are more concerned with economic development and sense gratification without any religious sentiments. As a great emperor of the world, Maharaj Parikshit had to observe such regulations of the Vedic Karma Kandya section, but by his slight association with Shukadeva Goswami, he could perfectly understand that Lord Krishna, the absolute personality of Godhead, Vasudeva, for whom he had a natural love since his birth, is everything. And thus he fixed his mind firmly upon him, renouncing all modes of Vedic Karma Kandya activities. This perfectional stage is attained by Jnani after many, many births. The Jnanis, or the empiric philosophers endeavoring for liberation, are thousands of times better than the fruitive workers, and out of hundreds of thousands of such Jnanis, one is liberated factually. And out of hundreds and thousands of such liberated persons, even one person is rarely found who can firmly fix his mind unto the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna, as declared by the Lord himself in Bhagavad Gita 7:19. Maharaj Parikshit is specifically qualified with the word Mahamana, which puts him on an equal level with the Mahatmas described in the Bhagavad Gita. In the latter age, also, there have been many Mahatmas of this type, and they also gave up all karmakandya conceptions of life, solely and wholly depending on the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. Lord Chaitanya, who is Lord Krishna himself, taught us in his Shikshashtakam, Ashlayava Pararatam Pintashimam Adarshanam Manamahatu Karotava Yata Vidadato Lampato Maparanatas to Saeva Napara. Lord Krishna, who is the lover of many devotees, women, may embrace this fully surrendered maidservant, or may trample me with his feet, or he may render me broken-hearted by not being present before me for a long duration of time. But still, he is nothing less than the absolute Lord of my heart. Srila Rupa Goswami spoke this. This meter I don't know, so I'm going to skip it. O Lord of the poor, what do what you like with me. Give me either mercy or punishment. But in this world I have none to look to except your lordship. The Shatakra bird always prays for the cloud, regardless of whether it showers, rains, or throws a thunderbolt. Srimad Arvinda Puri, the grand spiritual master of Lord Chaitanya, took leave of all karmakandya obligations in the following words. O my evening prayer, all good unto you. O my morning bath, I bid you goodbye. O demigods and forefathers, please excuse me. I am unable to perform any more offerings for your pleasure. Now I have decided to free myself from all reactions to sins simply by remembering anywhere and everywhere the great descendant of Yadu and the great enemy of Kamsa, Lord Krishna. I think this is sufficient for me. So what is the use of further endeavors? Srimad Arvinda Puri said further, let the sharp moralist accuse me of being illusion. I do not mind. Experts in Vedic activities may slander me as being misled. Friends and relatives may call me frustrated. My brothers may call me a fool. The wealthy Maimonites may point me out as mad, and the learned philosophers may assert that I am too much proud. Still, my mind does not budge an inch. from the determination to serve the lotus feet of Govinda, although I be unable to do it. And also Prahlad Maharaj said, religion, economic development, and sense gratification are celebrated as three means of attaining the path of salvation. Of these, ikshatrayi, especially knowledge of the self, knowledge of fruitive acts, and logic, and also politics and economics are different means of livelihood. All these different subjects of all these are different subjects of Vedic education, and therefore I consider them temporary engagements. On the other hand, surrendering unto the Supreme Lord Vishnu is a factual gain in life, and I consider it the ultimate truth. The whole matter is concluded in Bhagavad Gita 2:41 as by Vaisayatmika Buddhi, or the absolute path of perfection. Shri Baladev Vijibhushan, a great Vaishnav scholar, defines this as Bhagavad Acharan Rupaika Naishkamya Kamyabir Vishuddha Chitaha, accepting transcendental loving service to the Lord as the prime duty, free from fruit of reaction. So Maharaj Parikshit was perfectly right when he firmly accepted the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, renouncing all karmakandya conceptions of life. Jai. All right. Again, I'll read the translation. O great sages, the great soul Maharaj Parikshit, constantly wrapped in thoughts of Lord Krishna, knowing well his imminent death, renounced all sorts of fruitive activities, namely acts of religion, economic development, and sense gratification, and thus fixed himself firmly in his natural love for Krishna, and asked all these questions exactly as you are asking me. So, in reading this verse, I was thinking about how generally most of the Vedas deal with the path of karmakandya, or karmakanda, how to enjoy in this world in a pious way, because people come to this material world to try to enjoy separately from Krishna. And so they do these different rituals, try to get what they want in this world, and also try to attain higher planets in the next life. And actually, if you read, the Bhagavatam, it's really not for this path, but, it talks about it a bit. And just by hearing about it, I get the sense that if you meet someone who's actually doing this path, they seem like a pretty nice person, a pretty pious person, because these people, they want good karma, so they can get a good result. However, the Bhagavatam is really meant for kicking out all these things, and the reason for this is that no matter what we're able to obtain through this process, ultimately we're all going to end up in a situation like Maharaj Parikshit one day, where we're going to have to give up our body. And this process can also be a bit of a trap as well, because even though in one life we might do things well, and of course this process is very difficult to perform in Kali Yuga, but I'm just talking about, hypothetically in general, in a situation where you can do this process, you might do it well and attain good results in higher planets. But in your next birth, you could make one little mistake that could cause you to suffer greatly. So it's very merciless. It doesn't give you any mercy. It's like the situation with King Nriga, who was very into karmakanda activities, and he accumulated a lot of good pious credit. But one day, when he was giving 10,000 cows to a brahmana, one of the cows slipped out and ended up back with his bunch. And then he gave that bunch to another brahmana, and the first brahmana found out, went to the second brahmana and said, "You stole my cow." The second brahmana said, "No, I didn't." They ended up in a fight. They go back to the king, And they're like, okay, well, you're gonna have to suffer because you have been in a Brahmana. And of course, when he goes to Yamaraj after he leaves his body, Yamaraj is like, yeah, you've done all these really good pious things. There's practically no end to your enjoyment, but you did this one little thing. And so, would you like to suffer the results of your, bad activities first, or enjoy your good activities? And of course, he chose to receive the results of his bad activities, and we know he he took birth as a lizard in a well. But with bhakti, we see that Krishna is very merciful, which is why ultimately King Nigra, he ultimately took birth in Krishna's pastimes, because he had done one good thing uh, for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as described by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And so Krishna never forgot that. So with bhakti, Krishna never forgets your activities, and there's no loss, as Krishna also explains in Bhagavad Gita. So we're seeing here that Maharaj Parikshit, he's renouncing all activities such as economic development, other fruitive activities, and this, we see that this happens when generally when one gets to a state where they're about to die. I know my grandmother, being as old as she is, I remember when I was younger, she was talking about all these things that she was going to do and what she was going to accomplish, and where she was going to travel, and how she was going to remodel the house. And now that she's in her 80s, she's just at the point in her life, the body's breaking down. And she's starting to realize, what's the point of all this? What's the point of all these things? Because it all comes to an end ultimately. And as you get towards the end of life, you get to a point that you can't really enjoy it. Maybe you still have some desires, but the body doesn't want to play ball. So we see here that she's, now kind of wrapping up her activities and trying to focus on what's really important. So the Bhagavatam ultimately is trying to get us to this point where we're conscious of that we're all in a situation like Maharaj Parikshit, where we're going to have to give up the body sooner or later. And Prabhupada said that Maharaj Parikshit, he actually was very fortunate because he knew he was going to die in 7 days, but we don't know if we have that much time. So Maharaj Parikshit is setting the example for us, by he's stopping, all activities that are going to give some pious result, stopping all the karma kanda activities, not focusing on economic development, and he's keeping what matters most in the forefront, which is relationship with Krishna. So, of course, we're often in a situation where maybe we can't just give everything up because we have family and stuff like that. But it's a good reminder for us to understand what's really important and to keep that in the forefront, because we don't know at any moment, our situation could be taken away from us. Like Maharaj Parikshit was cursed in an instant. He wasn't expecting when he went out hunting that day to be cursed by a Brahmana. So in the same way, we're often in situations where in the blink of an eye, everything changes. You suddenly lose a loved one in a car accident, or somebody walks out on us, or we lose our job. Some things happen that can just totally change the course of our life. So we learn, by studying Srimad Bhagavatam, to not take shelter of these things, and to be more like Maharaj Parikshit in essence, to understand that, okay, when did this is all going to go away? Everything is borrowed. So what should I actually focus on? And so this verse is describing what Maharaj did, and Shaunaka Rishi is explaining to the sages. So this chapter is a further explanation of that. So that's all the realizations I have. Well, of course, I have more, but I want to open it up now for any of you guys that might want to comment what you think about this verse. Also, last thing I'll point out is that Prabhupada, she not only condemns this karmakanda process and the purport, but he also cites various evidence, that what Maharaj Parikshit is doing is the proper thing by quoting from Prabhupada, and by quoting from Prahlad Maharaj, and by quoting from Lord Chaitanya, and by quoting from Rupa Goswami. So we see here also one of the things in this verse is that Maharaj Parikshit is not acting whimsically, but he's also acting according to sadhu and according to Shastra as well. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for sharing all your points and realizations, especially that last point too, just emphasizing that, that Maharaj Parikshit, he's acting completely in line with Shastra and Sadhu. I don't know, I feel like you kind of covered everything. So, well, I guess
Hare
one
Krishna.
thing,
Yeah.
I guess
Okay,
one,
you go on.
oh,
I don't
okay,
have a comment. It's more of a question. So if you're commenting, finish your comment.
okay. So one thing that was coming to me was that there is the renunciation, um, but my understanding is that it has to be kind that there has to be a balance though, where we are also um, doing our duty, doing our due diligence, materially speaking. That if we have material things that we have to take care of, then we take care of them. Not that we just renounce everything and and abandon our responsibilities. That's not what's being spoken about here. And the nice thing is that we have the the example of the Bhagavad Gita where that's kind of the mood that Arjuna was holding at the beginning. We're talking about renunciation, and Arjuna was talking about renouncing the fruits of the war and winning the battle. He was wanting to renounce all that and just leave it all and not fight. But Krishna told them to fight. So that's the same instruction for us too, um, that when it's time for us, we'll know when it is time for us to let go of our attachments, or at least begin the process of letting go of our attachments. But prior to that time, we have to work through them and utilize them in a way that's helping us to cultivate our relationship with Krishna. So if we're attached to certain things, we can't artificially try to renounce them. We can't artificially try to be in a position that we're not, because then it's going to come back and come right in, like smack us in the face. Um, so that was basically one thing that was standing out for me is, well, sometimes we can, especially for myself and maybe newer devotees, we can kind of get this misconception of what renunciation is and when should we renounce, when are we not supposed to renounce. Um, and I think the concept of renunciation too, was it no, it was detachment, which it's kind of similar. Yeah, the process of renunciation and detachment, and how uh, Guru Maharaj, Manat Maharaj, I was listening to a class where he was speaking about the detachment and how, as jivas, it's actually not natural for us to be detached, to not have desires, and that's not natural for us because we are made of ananda. We are made of the pleasure potency, or we're made. Yeah, we have that blissful nature, that blissful quality is in us. That desire for pleasure is in us. So to try to renounce our desire for pleasure, for happiness, for joy, it's not actually natural. The detachment or renunciation is talking about materially, where we are renouncing our material enjoyments, our material life so that we can move into our spiritual joys, our spiritual pleasure, our spiritual relationships. So when we speak about renunciation or detachment, that's what it is. You're not negating, you're replacing. So we replace one with the other. We replace material with the spiritual. Yeah, and so that's the points that were coming up for me.
Yeah, so it's it's kind of like Cardinal Mooney. He did his duty perfectly as he was supposed to do it. But when the time came for him to renounce, he was able to renounce. And that's also kind of like what happened with Maharaj Pariksit. He did his duty perfectly as a king. We see, he chastised Kali when Kali was beating the bull, things like this. But when he realized, okay, I'm gonna die, he didn't try to, hold on to all these things or somehow counteract these things or go to some astrologer. Okay, how can I counteract my karma that I got going on here? As some people try to do. Of course, it's not his karma, but I'm talking about, like with general conditioned souls. We hear something might happen to us and we want to know how to counteract it. So we see that Maharaj Pariksit, he did his duty, um, to the best of his ability, all for the pleasure of Krishna. But when the time came, he was able to be like, okay, I'm gonna die tomorrow, and we said he was able to let go of that attachment and not necessarily be bewildered by by his coming death, which is a lot of what the Bhagavad Gita talks about over and over again. It's like being tolerant, accepting your situation, all being said in different ways, but for the pleasure of Krishna, always keeping that in mind. Yamuna.
Hare Krishna. These are all very good points. The only thing that I'd like to add to what the two of you have just said before I get to my question is that, it's become very difficult in this society to leave your body. We're talking about leaving material possessions. Okay, in our mind, we can leave our material, but everybody tries to hold on to you and put you on life support and keep you going and keep you going and keep you going. And then you have a inferior quality of life. And I have known people who have wanted to leave their body and were not permitted to do so for varying periods of time. So that's something that goes on in our society. It's not so simple anymore. You don't just say, oh, well, I'm really sick, so now I'm going off into the woods and to pass away, to just think about Krishna and pass away. It's not like that. Whether we're ready to let go or not, the people around us are attached, you know and so which is why I guess it's an important thing to make clear your once you become an elderly person, to make clear for what your desires are when you should get to that last moment. But of course, the most important thing is remembering Krishna. And my question has to do with just wording, how things are worded, because if one is conscious of Krishna, is that not religion? I mean, okay. I mean, maybe the point I'm missing is something about the acts of religion. But just the question I have basically is Krishna consciousness in itself religion, or is religion, what is religion then, if not that? You know, do either one of you want to attempt a comment on that?
Yeah, okay, yeah, like where it says in the verse, he renounced all sorts of brutal activities, namely acts of religion, economic development. Okay, right there, that's what you're getting at, right? Okay. So, let me see, hold on, give me 1 second here. Okay, so this is talking about religion in terms of karma khandya activities. It's right here in the so Prabhupada says in the purport, the three activities of religion, economic development and sense gratification, are generally attractive for conditioned souls struggling for existence in the material world. Such regulated activities prescribed in the Vedas are called the karmic khandya conception of life. So it's talking about in the Vedas, generally householders, they have different duties that they have to perform, religious duties, various sacrifices and things like this. For those that are following the karma khandya way of life. And so these religious activities are what's being referred to here. It can be a little bit confusing because, in our society, we don't have a varnashram society set up, where people are doing these things, and especially it's kind of foreign to us in the Western world. But it's talking about these ritualistic activities meant ultimately for increasing one's sense gratification, even if it's in like a pious way. So being conscious of Krishna consciousness is different in the fact that it's transcendental to all these things. These religious activities are more within the modes of material nature, mostly with goodness, because they want to like transcend for the higher planets. It says those who worship the demigods, they go to the planets of the demigods, which are in that higher realms. And so but with Krishna consciousness, being conscious of Krishna, it's greater than a religion because it's the actual constitutional position of the soul. What is that verse? And then oh my god, I can't think of it right now. But it's basically saying that, I can give you another one. This is the one I was thinking of, but Krishna explains in Bhagavad Gita that all living entities are my eternal fragmented part and parcel. Right? And so since Krishna is eternal fragmented part and parcel, then naturally, our eternal position is to be conscious of Krishna. So therefore it's one might think of it like what we're doing is like religion, but what we're doing is really our eternal position. Ananya Chita I think that is, where the blissful eternal parts and parcels of Krishna. So it's different in that sense. Does that answer your question?
Well, even Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that to renounce all religions and to come to him. This is kind of, well, but isn't this a religion? But yes, I can understand the difference between the acts of religion and the spirituality, the connection that we have with the being part and parcel of Krishna. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. And there's also that verse in Bhagavad Gita, Dharma, there's also that verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is saying, abandon all religious activities and just surrender unto me. But it's saying, abandon all dharma, what anything else that you think is going to save you, and just surrender to me. Because he was trying to convince Arjuna, fight for the sake of fighting, fight because you're a Kshatriya. And then he goes to like higher levels of like why he should fight. And ultimately it concludes into fight because I want you to. So it's like it's making me think of like with that pastime with the Yudhishthira Mahabharat. Manath Maharaj has talked about this, I believe, where Yudhishthira, he had to see the hellish realms because he was very much, he was into the mode, like into more in the mode of goodness, and he never wanted to tell a lie. Of course, he's pure devotee, but this is giving us an example of what happens, when we're too attached to like highest mode of goodness activities. I'm never going to tell a lie. And then there was that whole episode where they were like, tell Dronacharya that Ashwatthama has died because there's no way we're going to be able to defeat him if he doesn't think that his son has died. So Bhima immediately goes and slaughters Ashwatthama the elephant, right? And then he goes, Ashwatthama is dead. But then Drona wants to hear it from Yudhishthira. because Yudhishthira never tells a lie. And Yudhishthira didn't want to do it, and Krishna wanted him to do it. And Krishna looking at Yudhishthira like, you better tell him. And and then so Yudhishthira's like, Ashwatthama has died, you know? He didn't want to say it completely. So we see that, you know, ultimately, you know, he had to have some vision of hell, even though like he didn't go there. But it was to teach us that surrendering to Krishna, you know, it's above all these things, you know, these so-called, you know, pious rituals, religious activities and things like this. And when we get off this class, I'm gonna think of like 5 different Sanskrit verses to prove my points. But I can never think of them when I'm on the spot, except for the English. All right.
Well, the English is better than me. I mean, that the only one that came to my head was the Sar. I had to look it up. Well, I remember the first line, the Sarva Dharman Parityajya, but I don't know the rest of it. And so I
Yeah,
looked it up.
mommy comes Sharanam Raja. Antum Saga Pabam Yo Moksha Yishami Masujaha.
Yeah, yeah, there
Yeah,
you
that
go.
one.
Yeah, that's the one that came to my head too as we were
That
talking
one.
about
Oh
this.
yeah.
But I got curious about Prabhupada's definition, and he says that in I guess this was a class or maybe he was answering a question, and Prabhupada says that our definition of religion is that religion is the word or the law given by God. That is religion. So I don't know if that helps to clear things up a little bit, but it's the word or the law given by God. And I guess my understanding would be that or the law, you follow the law. It's like if you think about a country or yeah, a country or a state, the laws are only applicable to that country or to that state. But once you're above that country or that state, then the law, you know, those laws no longer apply to you anymore. So if we think about religion in that sense, the laws the laws of the makes me think of like the material world, that these laws are applicable to the material world and while we're in the material world, but once we move beyond it and go back to the spiritual world, then there's the laws are no longer applicable to us because we're now living now we're in the spiritual world. So it's a different there's different laws in the spiritual world that we follow. um,
Yeah, and also I was thinking of something as I was looking in the Sanskrit here.
yeah.
It says try Vargikam, the 3 principles of religion, economic development, and stage gratification. So it was making me think of a lecture I heard about. I heard from Prabhupada where he was talking about, and he mentions this in a purport in the Bhagavad Gita as well, on how the conditioned souls, they're usually concerned with the main activities of karma, artha, dharma, and moksha. So let me put it this way. So like religious activities, economic development, and sense gratification. So performing some religious activities, some pious activities, so that I can have ultimately have some sense gratification and economic development. So I've heard him also explain religious activities in this way. So more of the karma kanda path. Karma to dhamma. Karma artha. Karma is like lust or like a desire for sense gratification. Um artha. Uh, sorry, I'm losing it right now.
No problem.
But yeah. No, I
Yeah,
usually know this so well, but I know brain fog today.
yeah.
And dharma is like you know, your prescribed duty. Moksha is like you know, liberation. So basically the conditioned souls, they're concerned with these activities, but the Bhagavatam ultimately transcends all of this.
Hmm. I think we can go to the next verse. That'll probably be our last one.
I think so because it's a short verse with a short purport, so I think it would fit in very nicely now.
Yeah,
Would you like to read it?
sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
Rajovacha Samichinam Vacho Brahman Sarvagyasya Tavanagha Amo Visirjate Mayam Redkathaya Takatam. Maharaj Parikshit said, O learned Brahmana, you know everything because you are without material contamination. Therefore, whatever you have spoken to me appears perfectly right. Your speeches are gradually destroying the darkness of my ignorance, for you are narrating the topics of the Lord. Purport, translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai. The practical experience of Maharaj Parikshit is disclosed herein, revealing that transcendental topics of the Lord act like injections when received by the sincere devotee from a person who is perfectly uncontaminated by material tinges. In other words, reception of the messages of Srimad Bhagavatam from professional men heard by a Karma Kandiya audience never acts miraculously as stated here. Devotional hearing of the messages of the Lord is not like hearing ordinary topics. Therefore, the action will be felt by the sincere hearer by experience with a gradual disappearance of ignorance. Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha deve tatha gurau tasyaite katita hyartha prakasante mahatmanaha. Shvetasvatara Upanishad 6.23. When a hungry man is given food to eat, he feels satiation of hunger and the pleasure of dining simultaneously. Thus, he does not have to ask whether he has actually been fed or not. The crucial test of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam is that one should get positive enlightenment by such an act. The verse again, Rajo Vacha Samichinam Vacho Brahman Sarvagyasya Tavanagha Amo Visiryate Mayam Hared Kathaya Taha Katham. Maharaj Parikshit said, O learned Brahmana, you know everything because you are without material contamination. Therefore, whatever you have spoken to me appears perfectly right. Your speeches are gradually destroying the darkness of my ignorance, for you are narrating the topics of the Lord. Okay. Yeah, you have to excuse me too. Today I'm kind of foggy too. I don't know why, but it just feels like I'm kind of there's not like a whole lot going on up here. So I have to
Wait, wait,
really
were you up late last night, Prabhu?
yeah, it was. I think
Yeah.
that's why.
No, I get that because I'm often up late because Mukunda comes home late, and so yeah, the next day you feel kind of foggy. So don't worry.
Oh,
You're
okay.
better.
Well, I mean, I didn't even think I don't even relate the two. I just think I don't know why this is happening, but yeah, that makes sense.
Tamagoon,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's the modes of nature when we're up very late, and unfortunately, angry hustle life, there's situations where you can't avoid that.
Yeah.
So you're up very late, and then the next day your mind is you're a little bit foggy because of that like association with the Tamagoon not being able to go to bed early.
Hmm. Yeah, it's austerity. It's an austerity to go to bed early more than
Yeah.
it is to wake up early. Okay. All right, let's see what we can glean from this. Okay, so your speeches are gradually destroying the darkness of my ignorance. That makes me think of like Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. That we hear that phrasing in other areas too, where our prayer to the Guru, where he has dispelled the darkness of our ignorance with the torchlight of knowledge, and how this ignorance, kind of like how we're talking about right now with Tamagun, Tamagun being darkness, being the mode of ignorance. Um, when we're in ignorance, it's kind of, I mean, it's kind of clear. as we're practicing our Krishna consciousness, we can kind of get a sense of um, where we are, but also it becomes clear where other people are too. Which guna they're really in or attracting, and when someone is in that tamagun, then it's like I guess you could say it's like really like animalistic. That if we think of like an animal that's just kind of not putting a lot of thought behind things and just going from one thing to the next without any real reflection, then that's how some people live our lives. I mean, that's how I lived my life before understanding the higher principles of life, the purpose behind life. I would just go from one thing to the other. And usually it's based on our senses, kind of like what we were talking about in the last verse, uh, the sense gratification, right? That's what came up. Yes, yeah. That's that just like the scriptures tell us, that's one of the typical activities of conditioned souls, that we're looking for sense gratification. And so that's what's pulling us. Um, we're wanting people work, people have jobs because they want money, and we want money so that we can enjoy our life. Or if we have a family, then we get money so that we can take care of our family. um, uh, Things like having a sex life, things like buying pleasurable objects, things like taking trips, and all these different kinds of activities that we want to do. But there's no kind of thinking beyond that. That's the darkness of our ignorance, that we stay inside this bubble of, this is what life is about, that I just have to try to enjoy it and then make the most of it. But the problem is that because the material world isn't set up in that way, that we can just be perpetually enjoying without cessation, we get frustrated. We hit the barriers of our bubble time and time again. We get smacked in the head. We smack ourselves against the wall again and again. Um, but because of the darkness, we can't understand that this is actually not natural. We we come to just accept it, and we think that, oh, this is what life is. Sometimes you're happy, sometimes you're sad. There's nothing else. This is just life. And sometimes and so when that suffering comes without a higher knowledge, we can just accept it and not think, not understand that we can actually do something about this suffering. We can actually solve these issues that we have, um, permanently, not just temporarily, not just solve one issue and then another issue springs about, and no, I got to solve this problem now. Oh, and then another problem comes. But we can actually solve all our problems permanently. Um, but this darkness, it's so dense, it's so strong. The tamagun and these modes of material nature are so strong that there's no way we can ever rise above them without the assistance of someone coming in. Someone, yeah, someone. It's not something, it's someone who comes. um and once we start, like, we have that experience, because or else we wouldn't be in this class right now. We wouldn't be continually trying to practice Krishna consciousness. Once we have that practical experience, that what I'm reading about, what I'm learning about, that there is some truth to it. And so I want to continue learning about this because this is really speaking to me. And that's the hook. And it gets us to continue in our practice. And then in the verse itself, it's giving us the answer of what is clearing out that darkness of our ignorance. And it's narrating the topics of the Lord. It's talking about Krishna. This is what's dispelling that ignorance. The more we hear about Krishna, the more we think about Krishna, the more that ignorance is being destroyed. So we um so that's what we hear. There's the 9 processes of devotional service. There's the Shravanam, then you have all the other ones. And
Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Parasevanam, Archanam, Dasyam Nivedanam.
yeah, those. So it starts with the Shravanam, which is a hearing. But the nice thing too is that it's not like it's not like it's Shravanam and then you go on to the next level and then you go to the next one. It's no, it's Shravanam throughout. We hear throughout. And because these topics are transcendental, the the pleasure that we get from hearing just increases. It's like and we don't have that experience with material things. You can read Stephen King and get one of his books and you can read it and it's like, oh, this is so nice. And then you try to read it again and it's like, oh, well, this is nice. But you can't read it 5, 6, 10, 20, 30 times. You can't, you'll be tired of it. And it's like, okay, this is the same old thing. I got to read something else. But Bhagavad Gita, I mean, we have devotees within our movement that have been reading the Bhagavad Gita for 40, 50 years. The same books, it's the same letters, nothing changes. It's but but they're actually relishing it even more now. So this is the good fortune of what we're doing with our life. So yeah, this is what I have. This is what I could muster up.
Oh, nice. And you were mentioning, as you were talking, I was thinking, did you talk about how, we don't really think beyond like kind of like the daily routines or like the kind of enjoyment, family and sense of gratification, going on vacation, stuff like that. And I had just this one simple thought about how people generally don't think. And it made me think about before I took up this process of Krishna consciousness. Okay, I wasn't vegetarian or anything like that prior. I would go to the store and I would look at something and I would think, oh, this looks good, and pick it up, buy it, and then eat it. I would never check what's in this. And so and it wasn't until I came to Krishna consciousness that I saw the devotees going to the store and like looking at ingredients. Like I thought ingredients were for people that had food allergies. Well they are, but never looked. And as I started to look, not only was I noticing, okay, trying to avoid meat, fish, or eggs, but I was like, why do cookies have 30 ingredients in them? Like what is this stuff that like I can't even pronounce? And it made me think, okay, well maybe I should actually be a little bit more conscious about what I'm doing. And that's kind of what that's what guru does in spiritual life. Is he wakes you up, oh my goodness, the Shagananjana Shalakaya. Shalakaya is like the blade that opens the eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. But just to go off this point, Prabhupada here, he's mentioning that where does it say here? Transcendental topics of the Lord act like injections when received by the sincere devotee from a person who is perfectly uncontaminated by material attentions. So the message has to come from someone who's uncontaminated by material attentions. So it also, like, if we're contaminated by material attentions, then we need to make sure we're giving the message exactly like somebody who's uncontaminated by material attentions is giving it. And that's the important part. That in a hospital, you give someone a medicine, but it has to be given by somebody who's trained and has knowledge about that medicine. If I know that, okay, this antibiotic will cure you, but I don't know everything about this antibiotic, then I don't really know how much to give you. I don't know like what's in it. Maybe you might have an allergic reaction, something like that. So with Shastric knowledge, we know at the same time that, okay, Bhagavatam has all the knowledge in it, but we also, the way that we're giving it to people, we have to be conscious of that, that we're not giving it according to our own interpretation if we're not free of the modes of material nature. That we're giving it, kind of like Srila Prabhupada gave it, like Srila Prabhupada is interpreting it. Because some people will look at the Sanskrit and they'll argue. Like I've had devotees argue with us. They're like, "Oh no, this word doesn't mean this. Why did your Prabhupada put it like this?" But Prabhupada's seeing the whole spectrum, which is why he's translating it the way it is. So there's also an important point, and why we see that some people can read Bhagavad Gita or read these things and not really have any change of heart, because they're not going through the proper process, or they're reading it according to their own interpretation, or they're reading a translation that's somebody else's personal interpretation, things like this. So it has to the knowledge, we're protected that our knowledge comes in a line. And I appreciate that Prabhupada made that point here. And he mentions too that professional reciters. And I always thought, what is this? Who recites the Bhagavatam professionally? But I've actually seen places in India where they'll like advertise this 7 days, Bhagavatam, come and hear, it's usually some really good storyteller or something like this. And they'll give you the Bhagavatam. And no, but and usually they'll want to focus on parts that people want to hear, like Krishna Leela. They don't want to talk about stuff like, give this up or give that up, or the proper qualifications for hearing these things. So if some people will say, oh yeah, the Srimad Bhagavatam, so many people hear it, they don't become devotees, but we also have to think about how they're hearing it and what the process for hearing that is. And yeah, that's kind of just what I thought when you made that point. There was something else too, but I can't remember right now. Do you have anything you would like to add?
Well, no, I don't think so. You guys kind of cover it all, and there's not anything more to add to that. You know, I think we should wrap up the class. Unless Govinda, you have more to add?
No, I think this would be a good stopping point.
Yes. And all I want to add is we had a couple of people check in on us, and then they left the class, and we know that they came because they're looking for Manonatha Maharaj. So I encourage anybody who may still be hearing this, even if they've left the class, to present your questions, send your questions to Guru Dev, and ask him to give another video conference. That's all you need to do. As long as nobody is doing that, there will be no more video conferences with him in English. All you need to do is make questions, send them to him, and request the conference. Okay, so having said that, well, Srila Prabhupada ki jai,
Right.
Manonatha Maharaj ki jai.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, Hare Krishna, guys. This was
Right.
really nice, really sweet being here with both of you. And I got you in my prayers, Kimuna. Keep us updated how everything goes.
Thank
And
you.
yeah. All right. Srila Prabhupada ki
Jai.
and
Jai.
Maharaj ki jai.
Jai.
See you guys next week. Haribol.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.